Right, well, it's been quite a long time since I've muttered those immortal lines. Not another tent. Yes, yep, this is now another tent. I haven't bought one in a long time. I was hoping to film outside. We may still do that, hopefully before it gets dark. But it is raining at the moment. It's been nice and sunny all day, and then of course it suddenly decides that it's going to rain now. I seem to have lost control of my doggerset. She's there and has just spotted the sheep on the horizon. But I'm sure to get this tent up on Dartmoor at some stage by myself. But as I say, I hope to use it for another reason, personally, another time. And you know me, I'm always mad enough to get something like this. Hang on, I've got to get Lassie back a minute. Lassie, here! Good girl. Right, well this is the, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, or incorrectly, but this is the Nammatj 3GT. The GT stands for having this doorway here, which gives a much bigger, you get a much bigger porch here. So what I'll do is if I get up and I'll go to the, back of the porch, and as I say, that's one side there. That's the doorway, and that's all of Lassie in front of me in the porch, and I'm up at the back, so there's absolutely tons of room. Just to give you, I'm just gonna just zip ourselves up inside. I mean, it's so big in here, you could almost do with a larger wide-angle lens. So you can see I'm squatting down here, and I'm near the back of it, and I've got an absolute ton of headroom here. If I go into the middle here, and again, you know, I'm squatting down here, so you know, there's tons and tons of room above me. It is, of course, technically speaking, a three-person tent. I think three people would be pretty cozy in here. I would say this is, this is a very comfortable two-person tent. You get, I believe it's about 6 inches. No rude comments, please. It's about 6 inches gap. Oh God, my mind. It's about a 6-inch gap or so all the way round, so there's plenty of air flowing from the outer to the inner. Sorry, I'm always making myself laugh doing these. So yeah, so that goes all the way around the outside. Of course, it's hooked on with bungee cord. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. You could, of course, take them out, and you could take the inner out completely if you wanted to, and just have a ground sheet under here if you didn't want the inner. Right, let's have a look around at some of the features. So let's have a. I haven't got any mats or anything, so it's difficult to say, but that's the porch, and obviously you can see Lassie there. I'm about 5'8", and you can see, you may just be able to see, that's my knee there, to my foot to Lassie, So you've got all that space before you get to Lassie. And then, as I say, as long as she stays in place, I can then get, there's so much room, I can actually get just about behind Lassie and film back here. So this porch is immense. You know, you'd easily get a couple of dogs in here. I mean, if you vaguely remember, I did a standing up thing in the super mid running around. Well, I can't stand up in this, of course, but I can certainly stand legs straight, a bit Quasimodo. No more rude comments, of course, but again, it just shows the, you know, there is plenty of room here. So let's start at the back. There's a, or front I should say, there's a vent here. So you can, not very easy, single-handed. Lassie, what are you eating? Oh, don't eat that, Lassie. So you can open up the vent. There's of course a tie-off point here, so you could roll that up, which again I can't do one-handed, with a little bit of bungee loop there, which would go around that little clip. So that would be for sort of ventilation, and then that's bug netting there, so that will stop the bugs coming in. And of course, if you want maximum ventilation, and if there were no bugs, then of course you can open it like that. And I would probably suggest for most applications, or it looks like you probably have to roll them down separately by the looks of it, so you'd have to undo them both. There's just one clip there. Obviously on a 4 kilogram tent, Hilleberg are trying to save an ounce or a gram, so you'd have to roll down the bug net and tie it around that loop there, which I don't think you can see very well. There, it's better. And of course you then have to roll up this side, and then that cord will go around that one tie-off point there. I would say probably for most uses you would want this open for, you know, maximum ventilation, but of course if you want to do it up, then it's very easy to, it's reasonably easy to do up. So that's the front vent there. I'll show you the door later when it's maybe not raining. There's a pocket there for putting things in, a see-through pocket with a draw cord on that can be removed by taking off these clips here, so you could remove that. Again, on a 4 kilogram tent, I don't see the point in trying to save an ounce. Right, the vent inside, and I'd say you'd probably be more likely to maybe shut this at night, especially as long as you had the front one open. But so you've got the breathable mesh, or the breathable material here, and again this can be done up with the bungee cord there to the toggle, and then there's some more bungee cord on that side of the other side of the mesh, so again that could be done up there. And again, for most purposes I would probably suggest, certainly even if you had the mesh done up, unless it was absolutely freezing cold and you had an inadequate sleeping bag, you may want to keep that done up anyway for peace of mind. But I would certainly be tempted to have this one undone here for some ventilation coming through. And then of course you've then got the rear end vent there, which works in exactly the same way by the looks of it as as the front one. Looks exactly the same there. 2 bungee cords and 1 toggle there. Right, in this day and age of health and safety, probably ought to just point out a couple of trip hazards. They ought to have these painted in red and white. You've got a bit of sarcasm there, of course. You've got a cord running across here, and of course that's to stop the poles from pulling too far apart. Again, you can see Lassie in the vestibule there, and I'm in the vestibule here as well, or the porch. So you've got that one there. There is another cord here, and then of course there'll be another one halfway back, which we won't be able to see where the other crossing pole will be. Inside the inner tent here, there's like a clothesline here, which runs the length of the inner, so you could hang a few things here and tighten and loosen it as needed with this toggle. You could probably hang something from that as well. I'm lying down here, as you can see, and I've got my head pretty much on the door, and feet wise they are there, so there's about a foot or so beyond my feet. I'm about 5'8". You'd probably just about get away if you were 6 feet. Maybe if you were much taller than that, then the inner would probably slope too much at the back there. Then again, if you were taller than 6 feet, you could probably sleep at a slight angle like this, and then you would have more, you know, a little bit more foot room than that if you were at a slight angle, especially if there was just 2 of you, because then if one of you is a bit of a short ass, then they've got plenty of room that side. Forever insulting my viewership. Oh dear. So again, if I sort of sit up here, not quite sure how much you can see, but there is, you know, an absolute ton of room in here. I mean, I should probably use this just by myself at least a few times. You definitely want to be sharing this, to be honest. As I say, it's a 3-person tent, but I think for 2 it would be a palace. For 1 it would be a cathedral. Right, let's have another look inside. You have very, very high, but a very high bathtub sides. So even if the ground around you got flooded, again, you've got at least, what, 6 inches or so there of bathtub. So, you know, you could have water flowing through if your pitch flooded, and you'd be, just to give you a rough idea, that's the bathtub wall, and that's my shoes, you know, down there. So again, the bathtub is, you know, pretty big, really. You get 2 pockets inside if you want to organise a few bits and bobs, maybe a head torch or something like that, which I'm always putting down and never knowing where I've put the ruddy thing. So you've got a pocket there, and another pocket over on that side. I'll now zip up the inside, and again you can see the size of the porch. So again, if you had a dog or 2 dogs, they could go at the back over there or to one side, and you've still got an absolute ton of space for cooking, although of course you should cook outside, but of course we never do. But you're fine cooking as long as you have plenty of ventilation. But you've got plenty of room for cooking and storing gear. Done up the inside, so that is completely done up, and the zip goes all the way around apart from just that corner over there. So you could easily undo the whole thing and then just tie it off in that corner completely out the way. You've got a few options in here. There's a zip here which goes all the way around like that. So again, you could tie that off one way or another. Probably fold it in it on itself by the looks of it. It's a self-tidying bit of tent that's tidy even for me. So there you've got, that's the inner solid wall folded away so you can see what's going on outside, and again that would be for good ventilation, and I would recommend having the most ventilation most of the time, but of course it's easy to do up. And of course if you wanted to, there's no reason why you couldn't just undo the top if you, and again it neatly folds away like that, so if you wanted most drafts out but a tiny bit of ventilation, then you know you have that option as well. But the material in these of course is air permeable, so you'd be fine if you wanted it completely zipped up. Right, just to give you an idea on width, as I say, I'm about 5'8", and I can get my head here. You wouldn't sleep like this at all, of course. This is just to give you an idea of width. And my knees are just slightly bent there, so the width is probably around about 5 feet, I would say, nearly. And again, I'm sitting up and I've got headroom above me, and I am to one side of the shelter, so again if there's two of you in here, then as long as you aren't scrunched over in the corner, if you do utilise the middle each, well I don't see if you can both have the middle, but you know what I mean, if you both utilise this tallest part here, then again two of you have got plenty of headroom there. Right, back in the porch again, you get the main zip, let's get the flask out of the way, you get the main zip down here. It does look like you have to undo the mesh inner first. They don't seem to be connected to the door. And then the main door then opens that way. You will notice on the inside of the door there's a red toggle here. Of course this tent is for me won't be used in anything like the extremes that it's designed for. Ooh, let's see. But of course from the inside, if a storm blew up, we all know that zips can slip. So of course there's the inner zip there, and that will toggle around that, and that locks the zip in place from the inside. And there's one on that side as well, as you can just see there. So that will lock both zips down so that the door could not open in a storm. And then of course you've got a toggle here and a toggle there for securing the door open. The side of the door of course has an elasticated rim that goes all around, that again stops spindrift and water from getting to and past the zip there. And of course if you don't want the door open and again you want ventilation, then again of course you have the mesh inner there, or if there are bugs around, if you're in bug season. The sheep seem to be getting a bit braver at the moment and are heading in this direction. Right, but it's stopped raining, so I can show you the outside. I believe you get 22 pegs. I've got 2 pegs spare, so I'm thinking that Hilleberg supply an extra 2 pegs. This is the first time I've pitched it, so if I haven't pitched it perfectly you'll have to excuse the pitch, but I don't think it's far off. You can see the back, although you could call this the front, but I would call this the back. This is where your feet would be, of course, down here where it slopes towards the rear. This I would say would be your rear end. It's the broadest, flattest area. You get 4 pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rear is double guarded there. Plus of course you've got an extra peg here holding it out there. Coming around this side, you of course have 3 loops, 1, 2, 3. This of course section from this loop, the middle loop, to the rear is your sleeping area. And of course this section here from the middle loop to the front is the porch. There are pegs at each loop or hoop, so of course there are 3 there. Each hoop also has its own tie-out point, so again there are 3 of those, adjustable. Coming around to the front, so you would pitch it with the wind coming towards us ideally, but of course it will take wind from any direction, and with me around it needs to, including from inside probably. So the front you have 1 peg there and 1 peg there, and then of course back around to the front, and again you have 3 pegs for the 3 loops there. I'm afraid there isn't a peg for the loopy person holding the camera, right? And you can access the ventilation port from the outside. Oop, under there somewhere or other. The ventilation port is very well covered and protected by that low hanging sort of, you know, covery thing. My descriptions, eh? And then again, if we come around to the back, again the ventilation is tucked up under there, so unless the rain is going completely horizontal, it's not going to get there, and even if it did, it's just going to drip down and run away anyway. So this is the Hilleberg Nammatj or Nammatj 3 GT, and I'll start to I'll start to take it down and I'll show you the poles on this. The poles on this one are pre-bent. There's two of the poles that are on the sides. They have a slight kink in them. Behave. And they will give it extra strength, I would imagine. I guess that's the idea of that. I don't think I've actually got it pitched perfectly. I did notice the ground sheet inside was a bit twisted, and that's because this pole here, as you can see, is slightly this way a bit. It's a bit it's a little bit twisted there, so you can see I've not quite got it lined up perfectly. And that's a not so brief rundown on the Nammatj 3 GT. And I tell you, it was really just quite amazing, really, because I don't know how well this will show up. But if I hold that there, I can sort of walk towards the tent, just lower that, and just, you know, you can just step into it. It is pretty immense, really. And again, another health and safety thing, there's obviously a strip of cord that runs across the door there, and again that's to keep everything in place without everything breaking, falling apart and tearing and ripping. So again, just be careful on that. Another thing, it's always worth taking extra guy line, which you should have anyway. And if with these loops here you can't get the pegs in the ground here, then if you have extra cord or extra guy line, you could tie some guy line off onto that loop, pull your peg out, and you could put a peg in here or wherever you need it. So extra guy line is always useful. I just show you these, the corner tie outs, the 4 corner tie outs, 1, 2, obviously 4, are on cords like this. So these can be lengthened and then tightened and adjusted. So again, that would help with pegging it out. The 2 here don't. They just have a loop there and a loop there. So again, maybe just having a little extra cord wouldn't be a bad idea. So if you can't get a peg in here, because let's face it, that peg can only go in there in this setup. If you have some cord, then you could tie a piece of cord off, put it back a few inches or whatever, and then you could put your peg in, you know, wherever the ground was suitable for pegs. Right, it's time I had another cup of tea. The sheep are getting nearer and nearer. Thankfully, Lassie is paying them no heed. This is excellent training for her, actually. Right, one thing which is really important to know when you're taking down a tent like this, and in fact you can just see the kink in that piece there. I mean, that isn't bent, that is pre-bent there for strength. Yeah, the really important thing to remember is do not pull the poles out, because if you do, you could separate them, and that's how they could get brittle and or snap. So it's really important when you're taking them out to push the pole the length and remove it that way. So push the poles out, never ever pull them out. And obviously be very careful when they're lying on the ground that you don't stand on them. So you can now see how the poles they're not straight. They are just slightly, you know, kinked in various places. When you put the polers in on this one, you can only put the polers in from one side. That's this side, which is the door side. On the door side, they have these little sort of basket type things for putting the pole in. And then on the other side, you cannot put them in from this side because the pole threads through the material straight down into this strengthened material here, and you can see the material here, so there's no way of threading the pole from this side at all, so they all have to start and finish on the other side. Right, I hope this works. I'm just out walking Lassie in my local sort of park area, and I started editing the video this morning of the Hilleberg, and I noticed one glaring error, and that was I hadn't said you know, thanks for watching and goodbye, which I've now just done. So I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.